Welcome to On the Prowl. Florida Panthers are built for the playoffs, episode 23. I'm your host, Bill. Hope everyone is doing well today. The Panthers just finished a very successful homestand, and we're going to get to that here in a minute. But one of the things that really kind of jumped out to me was the national broadcast yesterday against the Chicago Blackhawks. And one of the broadcasters was former NHL player Ryan Callahan. And he came out with a quote that I thought was so appropriate. And the quote was, I'll tell you what, this team is built for the playoffs. They are just waiting to get there, Ryan Callahan. And I'd like to tie this in and refer back to some of what we talked about last week in terms of looking at this from a fan's perspective, from a coach's perspective, and also from a podcaster's perspective. And I'd like to refer you guys back to that podcast to take a look at that here. And I think that's something that we all need to keep in mind as we come down the home stretch. Now, we're going to take a look at the schedule here in a second here for the remaining games for the season. But I wanted to get this across. And, it's very obvious to a lot of NHLers out there and a lot of those who follow the game how the Panthers are built. And we'll go back to some of the quotes that Paul Maurice has said recently. You're going to see a lot of 1 and 2 point games coming up here. And in terms of goal differential. And these are going to be very tightly contested games. A lot of these teams that we're playing are on the bubble to make the playoffs. So they're going to be giving 120% for these games. And also, too, I'll go back to one of my favorite podcasts out there, Rod and Serena's Cats and Bolts podcast. And there was some talk about, Serena came out and had a quote about, they're not going to, as a professional athlete, you never lay off the gas pedal. You're always 120%. And, I don't disagree with her at all, but I agree with what Rod said 100% is you want to peak at the right time, which is the playoffs. Okay. In other words, you still want to play well during the regular season, but you want to kick in the afterburners when the playoffs start. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute when we look at some of the schedules here. Now, what's real interesting was they just came off a very successful homestand. They played a great game, and I thought one of their better games of the season against the Kings, 3-0 shutout for Bob. Fantastic game. He played well. Absolutely, just couldn't ask for more. The way they played that game it was polar opposite of, especially the third period they played against the Kings out in LA. They had it all together. It was a great game to watch. And then, of course, yesterday's game against the Blackhawks, they won 5-1, but it didn't start out so good. In the first 7 seconds, the Blackhawks scored and made it 1-0, and it was like first of all, that was the fastest goal to open a game for the Blackhawks in their team history, and they've been around since 1924. So that tells you something right there. It's it really was. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But then after that, 7 seconds into the game, for the rest of the game, it was all Panthers. There was just no questions asked. They totally dominated. They spent time down in Chicago's zone, relentless on the forecheck yesterday. Bob looked good after that, giving up that first goal. It was really kind of one-sided. And then today's game against the Islanders, okay, they jump out to a 2-0 lead against the Islanders, and then all of a sudden in the second period, the wheels fall off. The Islanders pull ahead 3-2. Everybody's looking like, what's going on? And then in the last, I think, minute 17 or so time frame, near the end of the second, the Panthers tied it, and then the Panthers went ahead. And then in the third period, they kind of turned the afterburners on, and they ended up winning the game 6-3. Now, there were some milestones that happened during these past few games here. Of course, tonight's milestone was Dmitry Kulikov played in his 1,000th NHL game, and they had a very special ceremony for him at the beginning of the game. The players wore Kulikov T-shirts, and then at the beginning of the game, they all wore Kulikov jerseys during warm-ups. And those jerseys are available for auction if you're interested. So go to the Florida Panthers website to check that out. Yesterday, Paul Maurice got his 900th win. That is amazing. He's been an NHL head coach for 27 years. I think he's like number 3 on the list with with Scotty Bowman. He's like ranked right up there. So a hearty congratulations to Paul. Outstanding accomplishment. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You are the best head coach in the NHL, and you are perfect for the Florida Panthers, bar none. Absolutely bar none. And then tonight, Carter Verhaeghe with a hat trick. He has been, I want to say this, and I agree with Goldie. I think he talked about it tonight, and Randy tonight on the broadcast. He's kind of been, he's been working so hard and been snake bit and just hasn't found the back of the net. Well, the past two games, boom. And tonight he had a hat trick as well. So that's so good to see that. And it's so good to kind of put the naysayers, especially to him signing that new contract. He's definitely worth the money. And again, we're going to talk about the playoffs coming up here in a second. And then Sam Reinhart. I mean, what else can you say about Sam Reinhart? NHL Public Relations put this out, and he's 11 days from playing in the Four Nations tournament for Canada. First in club history with 4 straight 30-goal seasons, and 1 goal from tying Pavel Bure on the Florida Panthers career goal list. I mean, wow. Wow, 4 seasons. All he's accomplished with them. And, it just never ceases to amaze me. Anytime he's out on the ice, he has the potential to score. And, they're starting, things, and there's indications to me. I think they're starting to pick this up because, one of the comments lately has been, we're seeing the Panthers win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 1. Well, let's take a look here at this win 1, lose 1, because right now, as of tonight, February 2nd, 2025, the Panthers are in first place in the Atlantic Division with 67 points, and the Maple Leafs are with 64 points. So they're 3 points ahead of them. This is fantastic, especially coming up. The Four Nations break is coming up in rather short time. So this bodes really well for them where they're at in the standings. And a lot of people have said they're very frustrated with the way the Panthers are playing. And it can, again, I'll refer back to my podcast from last week. It all depends on what perspective you're looking at this from. I think if you're looking at it from Paul Maurice's perspective, I think he's been pleased. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, if Paul's not worried, I'm not worried. If he's worried, I'm worried. And he's not worried, okay? And I'm not worried either, all right? So also, too, we're going to take a look here at their remaining games for the months of February, March, and April. Now, here in February, okay, we have 5 home games and 3 away games. And, of course, in the middle of the month, they have the break for the Four Nations face-off. Now, this week, they of course, they beat the Blackhawks yesterday 5-1, and the Islanders 6-3 today. They have a very tough contest coming up on Tuesday night against the Capitals. The Capitals, they've surprised me. I thought they were left for dead, but no, they are not. They're playing well, and they're definitely, they're nip and tuck within the Eastern Conference race with the Panthers. They're just barely ahead of them, but it's going to be a great game. And of course, Alexander Ovechkin and his goal chase, we're going to see all that. And that's going to be on Script Sports on ESPN Plus. So look forward to that on Tuesday. On Thursday, they have an away game against the St. Louis Blues. And then Saturday, they come back and they play Brady Tkachuk and the Ottawa Senators, who are playing very well this season. Another surprise. So that's what they have to look forward to coming up in February. And, of course, there's 3 games after that. They play the Kraken on the 22nd. They go away and they play Nashville on the 25th. But the game probably of the year is February 27th against the Edmonton Oilers, the Stanley Cup Finals rematch. And they were lights out against them when they went to Edmonton. So let's see how that game turns out. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the month of March here. Now in March, the Panthers have 7 home games and 6 away games. Now what's very notable here is that these 6 away games are all together here, and it starts on March 11th and it goes through March 22nd. So they have an 11-day road trip. So technically, this is their longest road trip of the season. But what's nice about this is, if you look, these are all Eastern teams here, okay? Playing Boston, Toronto, Montreal, the Islanders, the Blue Jackets, and then the Capitals. But these are all, again, in the Eastern time zone. The Panthers don't make any more Western trips. They are done with them for the year. So that bodes very well for them. And then they have 3 games, and they finish up one game against the 23rd on the Penguins. Then they play Utah on the 28th. And then on the 30th, they play Montreal. And Montreal's not been a slouch either. They're currently trying to fight for a playoff wild card spot as well. So I mean, it's going real good guns for them. All right. Now in April here, all right, they have 4 home games, but 5 away games. Very last game of the season, it's on April 15th against Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. There's no time. There's no time to rest. They have to be very focused and ready here. And I think is we're talking about this, and I'll go back here in the March and April kind of time frames. This is when you really kind of want to start to make the push here and to start to turn on the afterburners. And I think the guys, they're starting to get that message now, which is a good thing. And they have a break. And a lot of people don't want to call it a break, but I'm calling it a break for the Four Nations face-off. And it's good for it's good for the guys that have made that, especially the 8 Panthers that are going to represent their countries in the Four Nations face-off. Congratulations to all of them. But I think especially for the players, they're going to be sitting at home. They're going to have some time to rest and recoup from that. And one of the other things that I think we talked about last week, and if not, I'm going to bring it up again, is the fact, remember, the Panthers have played a lot of hockey the past 2 years, probably more hockey than anybody else has. And I think this rest and this break will be fantastic for them. I think it will recharge their batteries and get them going. And I think, maybe even in March, start turning on the afterburners a little bit, because we'll go back to what Ryan Callahan said, that they're built for the playoffs. Now, one of the other things, and I think we're going to talk about this on an upcoming podcast, there was just a couple more blockbuster trades that have gone on, the Rangers, the Canucks, the Penguins and the Canucks, they made some pretty significant deals coming up here to try to help their chances, especially for Vancouver. Pittsburgh's not going to make the playoffs this year. But the Rangers are trying to make a surge and trying to make a statement here. They got JT Miller back. Is Zito going to pull the plug here? We hope so. And especially lining up. And I think one of the things we're going to cover next week, and I kind of wanted to do it this week, but then the NHL has also increased its salary cap space. And I put out there on Twitter, I said, Bill Zito is licking his chops, and he is going to have a field day. I think he's really going to bolster the Panthers. And I think you're going to see, he'll make a move or two. You can count on that. But it's going to have to be, number one, it's going to have to be beneficial to the team, and who we give up is not going to have to be detrimental to the team. And it's going to have to fit in. So, I mean, look at last year, what he did. Just absolutely stellar, okay? Just absolutely stellar. So we'll see where that ends up, but I think more often than not, he will versus not. So we'll see that. So again, the Panthers have that schedule coming up this week. Then the Four Nations face-off is coming up, and then they're going to have a lot of the players that aren't playing are going to have a nice break here. So that's what we have for today for this podcast. I want to thank you guys so much for stopping by, for tuning in, also for subscribing. You guys have been fantastic with that. Keep up the great work. And again, this podcast is also out. We're out on Spotify. We're out on Apple. We're out on Podbean. I also send a audio only portion to the YouTube channel as well. So we're covering bases here, and we're growing like crazy. And I want to thank everybody for subscribing to the channel. It's been absolutely fantastic. And as always, guys, it's a great day for Florida Panthers hockey. Time to hunt.